You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, 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 all. It's Christina Barr, Black Tea News. Today we're going to be talking about why I think it's still important to fight for the social issues as we're getting into primary season and people are going to make their case. And usually I think when you see, especially with like local politics, people want to, you have to, of course, address the policies and the issues of where you're coming from. But there's a lot of people who like to shy away from the social things. And I get that because a lot of times our politics are, I mean, you have the people on the right who are going to vote the way they're going to vote, and you have the left who are going to vote the way that they're going to vote. And a lot of times you're fighting for that middle ground. So you just want to go and say, like, well, I have this idea, this local idea that's for businesses or jobs or whatever, and I think that's going to be a good policy, and you want to convince those independent people. However, our politics are so crazy today. I think the culture war is very important, and I want to stress that I think some of these things are really important to fight it for. And there is a study by Pew Research that I think is really interesting that prompted me to talk about this today. That came out about 3 days ago. But before I jump into that, I just want to say that I'm really excited because last night I approached a new landmark on my tickety talks, as I like to call them, because there's a lot of young people on the app, and I like to call them tickety talks because that's something my mom would say, and I like to I don't know, appear older, I guess. Which is funny because so many people are like, "Oh, I see your videos and I have such hope for the future," and I'm like, I'm not in my 20s, I'm 32, and they're like, "Oh," and they're like, I mean, it's a compliment. You think I look so young. A lot of people do tend to think I'm younger than I look, but I'm sorry that you had hope in our future. It's not warranted yet. But anyway, I reached 40,000. I've been on the platform since February, the end of February, really. So I'm, glad that I've reached that landmark. I'm doing really well consistently with my views and stuff. Approaching about 60,000 views a day on average. Some people have a lot. Some people can strike a really, really big viral video and they'll like plop up. I've had some really big ones, but I just really have a consistent following with that. So if you watch me on TikTok, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Please follow me on all my other forms, my platforms. I do lives on TikTok, and of course I do my little videos, and I share videos I do on TikTok across multiple things. But I appreciate everyone so much you guys watching, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. I appreciate you guys and the traction that we're getting. And it's a cool landmark for me. So thank you. I'm having a lot of fun. Before I move on, I do want to thank Michigan Brighter Pack. I'm in their studio again, so thank you for that opportunity to be here. And they like when I say it. I like to say it. If I say anything that triggers you today, you can't call them and complain. It doesn't work like that. They're not my boss. I'm just here in the studio speaking the truth. If you would like to support blacktnews.com, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and do that, or you can do support via PayPal, or you can do it via Cash App with the little ticker tape at the bottom there. And also, please visit the website. I got some of these goat hoodies in different colors if you're interested. Some people requested different colors. It looks so good in person. I do really like it on white because I have one myself. But I understand that some people are very messy and they don't want to ruin such a nice thing. So it is in different colors. As always, we do have different products that you guys can check out. So go ahead and get yourself a shirt, a mug, or whatever. Help support us there. So the first thing I like to tackle in this whole conversation about why a lot of these things are important is that the Democrats have really taken their finger off the pulse with a lot of things. They're so dead set, focused on their ideology that I think they're missing the mark with a lot of things. So, an example, COVID is obviously a topic of conversation, though the pandemic, it would seem, if we were just going by straight science, I think we could acknowledge that even though there's the Delta variant popping up, it's not as bad as Biden and the CDC and whatever strategy they have. I don't understand because the new mask policies are insane. Like in DC, I think they're like 13 out of 51 as far as their compliance, but they're gonna have they issued a new mandate. They were saying like we're gonna arrest everybody, but I think if you don't have a mask on, but I think they walked that back a little bit after outrage. But the order is like for everyone 2 and above. So it's like, really, you're gonna find somebody because a 3-year-old's not masked? Okay, sure, but why don't you get that carjacking situation handled first? So Biden is really gung ho about it, and at the same time, they're saying if you are vaccinated, you are also spreading the virus. So there's this one comedian, I can't think of anything he's been in, but and I should have had a video prepared, but like a week ago, he was like, F you, F, like saying all these curse words, and was like, you got to get the vaccine, and you guys are dumb, trashing people. I'm a hero. And so now he's like depressed because now they've come out and said, well, you can spread if you're vaccinated. He's like, CNN, Fox, and CDC, Biden, they're all saying that I was a hero before, and now I'm spreading the virus. He's like, we got to figure this out. And so TikTok's having a lot of fun making fun of these jokers. so they have a lot of mixed messaging on this. So I thought this tweet was interesting. So I want to start with this. So we have a dude from Vox within the inside of the tweet was saying, we need to start taxing people who aren't vaccinated, and that they should actually pass something. This is a policy proposal that a Vox reporter is suggesting, someone writing for Vox, who also wrote something about how the conservative Supreme Court is ruining America or shaping America, so you kind of know where they're at. But so they're saying we should treat people differently if they're not vaccinated. So someone retweeted them and was like, it's a disproportionate number of minorities who are not getting vaccinated. So now you're saying we need to go after minorities. So this is, of course, hilarious. And, of course, minorities are minorities and aren't the majority in the country. But they're a big chunk of who the Democrats appeal to. And they just don't have their finger on the pulse of this. They just don't have their fingers on the pulse of this. And they try to make excuses. They're like, well, we understand that you don't want to take it because of things like, you're marginalized and history has treated you wrong, and why would you trust us? But we need you to trust us. But there are things like the Tuskegee experiments, and which I've said many times, I don't understand why that makes sense. I don't understand why it makes sense because, okay, you're excusing black people for being scared about taking the virus because of the Tuskegee experiment. But everyone has access to history. Everyone can look it up and see what the sort of things that our government is willing to do. So it shouldn't be just a black people thing. Like, they're reasonable for not wanting to take it. We need them to take it, but they're reasonable. Now, no, those white people, they're just crazy hillbillies. They're just uneducated, crazy hillbillies. So it's really interesting how much they're pushing it, though. And now they're at the point where they're saying it doesn't matter. You still got to mask up, and you can still be spreading it. And Biden has said that he's talking about the possibility of locking down again, talking about the possibility of forcing people to do mandates with vaccinations and stuff like that. And he doesn't know how to do it is the issue. Not that it's wrong, not that it's stepping on our liberties, stepping on our toes, not that he doesn't want to do it. He just hasn't figured out how to do it. But he's talking to the DOJ, and that's what they're working on, I guess. Trying to figure out how to impose their authoritative will over the people, as opposed to, I don't know, doing other things they could be doing with their time. Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Green Taylor tried to figure. They're asking questions about the people who've been detained for January 6th, and they're like, they basically seem like they're political prisoners, but they tried to check out the facility where they're being held, and the DOJ's like, no, and they won't answer questions about stuff, and so they're dodging them. They won't have a meeting with them. And Gates raised a good point, which, do you guys remember when everyone said he was going to go to prison for like sex trafficking? That seems like forever ago, right? He's still nothing. I didn't talk about that story much because I'm waiting for information. If he did something bad, then I guess we will find out and he will pay. But it just kind of seems like people are saying vague things, because if it's true, he's definitely going down for it. But it just kind of seemed like hit job. But anyway, he made the point that Congress, they don't have a ton of purposes that they should have, but they have the power of the purse. And they're oversight with stuff. And so he's like, we're trying to get answers to questions, and you guys aren't answering our questions. So they were dodging on that. So I guess, but figuring out how they can force people to take vaccines, that's far more important. And that's what our government is going to be working on, while they send mixed messaging saying, you have to get the vaccine. Plus, by the way, you are shedding the virus when you take the vaccine, and you're still passing it to people. So we need everyone to get vaccinated, and as soon as possible, or we'll start making you. And by the way, you still have to wear masks. There's just no incentive. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible strategy. And mind you, Biden, Kamala, Cuomo, so many other people really downplayed the vaccine and how much it would help people when Trump was the president, because they wanted people to have no hope, no optimism, and now they have to deal with the consequences of their actions. So anyway, this is really funny, them proposing we need to start taxing people. And it's interesting that they've gone from, we got to give all these incentives to people who are vaccinated, cash prizes, lotteries. I don't know. I was in Meyer, and I heard something over the speakers. It's like, you can win all these groceries. I'm just like, is all this legal? Who knows? And now they're like, we just need to straight up tax them. Why? Why? It's crazy. So anyway, a lot of minorities aren't choosing to take it. It could just be because they don't trust it or whatnot. And my attitude has always kind of been from the beginning, I'd rather not. There are people who look at the ingredients, are like, that don't sound right. I don't even do all. I'm just like, I'd rather not. It's not really that deep. Now it is creepy though. It is creepy how much people are really, really pushing it though. But I'm not anti-vax. I'm just hardcore against forced vaccination. I'm hardcore against it. And if not, you don't even have to go back to things like the Tuskegee experiment to understand that the government should not have that kind of power over you, that you should not surrender so much trust in them. You can just look to today, to things like abortion, where science is pretty. Someone tried to comment it in my comments as a comeback, saying that a fetus isn't human. Well, if it's a human fetus, it's definitely human, sir. So I did like a witty, rhetoric comeback with him. But I'm like, no, a baby's definitely a human if it's a baby human. But you have people who are so invested in that argument to use words like, phrases like, they'll just say woman's choice or women's rights, and they'll have whole conversations about what without even considering that a child is in the mix, or even that a man helped to make it. They make it very self-focused, and they dehumanize a child as much as possible, even though I think the science is there to pretty much say, hey, it's human, it's alive. You got Jen Psaki Peter Ducey was like, hey, do you think a baby, and it might have been like a 15-week CX, do you think that's a life? And she's like, well, if you're asking, do I think women have the right to choose, then yes. Like, no, that wasn't the question, ma'am. That wasn't the question. But they avoid any sort of real conversation about life because they don't want to face the repercussions of what that might be as far as policy. And you got someone like Kamala Harris who went after Mr. Delighten for figuring out the Planned Parenthood was selling body parts, and instead of going after Planned Parenthood for selling body parts, they went after the person who was exposed them for selling body parts. And now you got Democrats in Congress who just passed a bill the other day, or their portion of it, I guess it's got to go on, saying that they not only do they want to fund abortions here, because we had the Hyde Amendment, you're not supposed to be funding abortion with taxpayer money. They don't like that anymore. They think that we should be doing it with our taxpayer dollars. And not only here in America, they think that we should evangelize that nonsense across the world. Whatever happened to all the Democrats or just people who thought when Bush was president that we were involved in too many affairs across the world, and now you're like, we got to go kill their babies, or convince these women that they should kill their babies, and then pay for it. But our government is willing to do that, even though that child is undeniably human and alive. And should have personhood, if we were being honest. It should have rights. I understand the laws are what they are right now. Doesn't make it right, but we can at least acknowledge it's alive. But they do everything they can to twist it. So, I don't know, so they can get... I don't know what they're doing with all the baby body parts. I don't know what all the evil reasons are to make their minds the way that they are. But if they're willing to do that at the expense of children, little babies, what the heck are they willing to do to you? Because we already know they've lied several times to us during this pandemic. So why on God's green earth? Why on God's green earth would you just surrender your body autonomy to the government and let them take away informed consent? That's crazy. That's crazy. And I don't know if everyone can articulate it in that particular way, but there's plenty of people across the aisle who feel strongly about that. And I think that could be a winning issue if Republicans wanted to make it. Honestly. So Democrats have lost the pulse on a lot of different things. And I definitely think the messaging with this COVID is one. People are really, really scared at first. But I think there's a lot more people frustrated. I think the issues with Republicans is just genuinely messaging and not knowing how hard to fight for particular things. But I think there's people out there willing to listen. So I talked earlier about my TikToks and how they're, I just reached 40,000 subscribers, and I'm getting like about 60,000 views a day on average, I think. That's like the average. So anyway, and I'm climbing consistently, so I'm happy about that. So anyway, I posted, this is now my biggest video that I did. That I'm about to show you guys. So it's kind of like a sequel to another video I had done in the past when Joe Biden said, your rights aren't absolute. So when I heard that, I did a video of it just kind of zooming in on my face and him saying no rights are absolute. And then the 13th, 14th Amendment, whatever, is popping up. And I see slavery and I people in chains and there's the clips of Biden saying put y'all back in chains and other kind of stuff that just sets the tone of Biden can bring back slavery if he doesn't think the amendments that outlaw that are permanent. So that became a really big video for me on TikTok. People start reposting it, not just on that app, but like Instagram and other places. There are really big accounts that were posting it. Some people tagged me, some people did not. People were calling me like, "You're famous." I'm like, "What? How?" And so that was my first, like, not my first really big one, but that was my biggest one. Until this Biden video. So I don't know if you guys saw it the other day, but Biden was at a town hall with CNN. I think it was Don Lemon, and man, he was crazy that night. Had a really hard time talking as usual. But he was talking about January 6th, and he said, "I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated. You can't just look at that stuff and say nothing happened." And so the messaging behind that was objectively, I don't care if you hate me, but objectively, January 6th was a bad thing, and it was an insurrection, blah, blah, blah. So that's what his messaging was, but people were like tweeting out, Joe Biden says, "I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated." So after he said that, I'm like, oh my Lord, I'm doing something with this. So I immediately like filmed something with the camera like coming toward my face. And then like the next morning, I took some time and I crafted together this video. There is, in case you're really confused, there is an eagle at the end of this video because it was at the end of the other video. Like I said, this is kind of the sequel, and so the other video, it ended with Jim Eagle, Joe Biden saying Jim Eagle because he said Jim Crow laws will make, like the voting rights will make Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. If you're like, that doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense when Biden said it either. It didn't make any sense when Biden said it either. It's Jim Eagle's not a thing. He just like made it up. So anyway, I incorporated that. So I had to make a comeback because at the end, because this is like, this video has freaked out people, but at the same time, I want people to know I was kind of joking. So I added something a little unserious at the end. But anyway, without further delay, here is my newest, this is not my newest video, but my latest top video.
I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated. Think I'm Satan reincarnated. I'm Satan. We're about to go into a dark winter. A dark winter.
We're in the battle for the soul of the nation. The soul of the nation. And that's not hyperbole. We really believe that.
If I reach something where there's a fundamental disagreement we have based on a moral principle, I'll develop some disease. It's estimated that 200 million people have died. Probably by the time I finish this talk. Jim Eagle.
So that is the video, and I wanted to bring it up not just because I'm obviously proud of it, but because I am amazed by all the people who are duetting it, sharing it, because I'm seeing a lot more black faces on TikTok than I realized. And my sisters told me they were on TikTok for a minute. And so they were telling me, you should get on that. We think you'll do really well. There's other black Republicans on there, black conservatives talking about the issues. And they just thought I would do really well. So at first I was kind of like, I don't know about that. And then I eventually didn't start killing it, I guess. And so thanks to them. Thank you for the push, the nudge. So I listen. So anyway, there are black conservatives on there, and there's more and more and more people coming out all the time. And I think Biden being a terrible president, the lockdowns, people playing people with COVID, people waking up to how they're being played, a lot of crazy leftist ideologies is pushing people, especially like with the LGBT issues, like, and there's people who are gay and stuff that are coming around into conservatism, but they're just kind of leaving the community because they're just like, you guys are, some of the people are insane. So there's more people becoming conservative that are being pushed, or they're libertarian, or they're whatever. They're just out of the left, or they may not identify as Republican or Democrat, but they're just leaving the left, and maybe they're libertarian, maybe they're conservative, maybe, they're just anti-statist, whatever, but the left is insane. And so they're radicalizing, not radicalizing is the wrong word. That's the word I guess the left would use, but because they just always go on 10. But they're turning more people toward the right with their rhetoric and how they operate. So when I played that video, I mean, I'm looking through the comments of people commenting. There's people who are just like, man, I hate to see it, but bring Trump back. And usually there's my comments, like, people try to come at me because there's a lot of white people who comment in my comments and stuff, which I try not to even notice or care about those things. But a lot of people are duetting my videos. So when they duet it, some people aren't on the screen when it plays, but some people are. And I'm seeing a lot of black people, and they don't have like particularly big accounts, you know, but they'll be just looking like, like, listen, and they're like, I rebuke you, Satan, and saying all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, there are people who do not like the stuff that Joe Biden is saying and doing, and maybe they don't like Trump, or maybe they're more receptive to listening to Trump because they can see like, oh, I made a mistake. But there's so many people who, even just example, and I know this is anecdotal, but it's so interesting to me how many people have reacted to this video and have reacted to Joe Biden saying that stuff and sharing this stuff. Now, I acknowledge like that video, there's like so much of it is obviously out of context. And I even did a video because someone commented like, when did Joe Biden say all this stuff? So I did a video explaining it all and the context of everything. But people are still sharing it. I know I'm probably gonna end up on a Snopes video or something like, like they say that Joe Biden is the Antichrist or is literally Satan incarnate. Let's debunk. I don't know how you debunk that, but I guess they would just like explain the context of everything. But I've already done that. But people are still like, like that's evil, and the different comments that he's made, and they're just kind of pointing like, see, and I, like I said, I put the eagle at the end to show that it's don't take this 100% serious. Obviously, there's a joke here. But someone did, you know, was like, oh, you guys are so hysterical. I'm like, this is obviously a joke, but I do believe that Joe Biden is into some evil things. And they're like what? And I said, like murdering babies. And so they're like, and then that person who I mentioned earlier was like, a fetus isn't human. and then I had to rag on them because that was obviously stupid. But there were so many people, black people, who were like, I can't rock with Joe Biden with that. Which is funny because that reminds me when Hillary Clinton's emails came out and they were talking about spirit cooking and that got out. And that was trending on Twitter for a while. People talk about the hacked emails as if that really made a huge difference in the election. Like, I watch social media a lot. I can't say that I saw any piece of information that actually changed a lot of people's minds, or really any people's minds, except with the exception of spirit cooking. I did see some people look at spirit cooking was like, I can't rock with that. I can't vote for that. I can't do spirit cooking. I can't do that. So I think so to the people out there who want to stray away from like any kind of social issues, any kind of like religious right sort of thing, minority communities are extraordinarily religious, and then unless you're in some kind of woke church, they're usually extraordinarily conservative. They just don't understand your message. And it's up to you to make that case, to make that pitch. And I think Republicans have a extraordinary problem with messaging. Like, you had the Republican leadership talking about how they're going to contrast the Biden administration, which the Biden administration is doing a terrible job with the economy. And there's research and stuff that is backing that up, that people are drawing, you know, a thread from Biden to inflation and blaming that on him. Majority of people. And independents are upset, Republicans are upset, and Democrats aren't extraordinarily happy either. So I think there's going to be a big backlash in the midterms. I mean, unless Republicans can screw it up, and they're totally capable of doing that. Totally capable of doing that, because they don't understand their messaging, and sometimes they walk away from wins. So anyway, a few weeks ago, Republican leadership was talking about taxes and blah blah blah. And which that's great. Everyone wants lower taxes, but a lot of people think about, when you think about cutting taxes and stuff, unless they have a business or something like that, and they're just someone working, they think when you say tax breaks, you're thinking about big corporations or something like that. There's a messaging disconnect there, a huge one. In the New York Times, I guess maybe this in 2020, they did an article admitting like, most everyone got a tax cut. Most everyone got it, but lo and behold, a lot of people didn't realize that they did. And so they showed a chart. I've showed it before on my show of people not recognizing that they got a tax cut. So they were impacted positively from the policies that Trump and the Republicans and whoever passed. But they didn't even realize it. So if they don't even realize it, how are they going to reward the party that did that? I'm not making the case that Republicans should not still fight for cutting taxes. You totally should. I want the economy back to where it was. I wish we didn't have, fools running, the government right now. However, there's more to it than that. There's more to it than that. And there's a lot of fights that I think that people aren't picking up. So I think people, and that's one reason why people really like Ron DeSantis is because he knows, he has his finger on the pulse of what Republicans are talking about and what Republicans are concerned about. And we had a pastor this last weekend who came to preach for us, and he's from Florida, and he was just going on and on about how he loved DeSantis. And how, he was complimenting DeSantis, how he just stomped out critical race theory in the schools. That is a huge issue. And Democrats and media are trying to pretend like it's just a bunch of white, crazy Republicans who are trying to ban it and don't like it. But no, across yes, majority of people are like white people and they don't like it. But there are Hispanics who don't like it either. In Asia, like the only minority group that seems to be okay with it are black people. But I would think that's just a lot because of messaging and maybe not quite it getting out there what it really is and how it can impact people. Like they hear a lot of white people complaining like, I'm not racist. But you have to also push the message of, they're saying you guys are losers and they're trying to destroy the agency of your children. And you have to really make a good case on how. And there's a lot of people who have like really surface level knowledge of it, and that's okay, but well, it would be better if you knew more, but you got to know a little bit more for the purposes of messaging. So that can turn around. But I thought this article from Pew Research that came out the other day was really interesting. So here it is. Rising shares of U.S. adults know someone who is transgender or goes by gender-neutral pronouns. So it goes on like partisan lines about people who are comfortable using pronoun names. Like more Republicans aren't comfortable, more Democrats are comfortable. It's younger adults, Democrats, and those who are more education and generally more likely to report knowing a transgender person or someone who uses gender-neutral pronouns, which a lot of that is just kind of fad culture, I think. Indoctrination, just popularity, because otherwise, why wouldn't you see more older people who are comfortable in their own skin coming out and saying, I'm going to be whatever with my gender ideology? It's usually a lot of young people who are doing that now. So it's really a movement that's with the youth. But I thought it was interesting when they start breaking it down with lines as far as within the Democrat Party, to say what they're comfortable with. So there are also racial and ethnic differences among Democrats on this issue. Majorities, white 74% and Hispanic 60%, Democrats say that someone can be a man or a woman if that's different from sex they were assigned at birth. In turn, a majority of black Democrats, 58%, say the opposite. So 58% of black Democrats are like, no, y'all can't change your sex. 58% of black Democrats are not buying the gender ideology stuff. They're not. It's weird. They understand the objective truth of life. So, if that is the case, You know, when Biden was campaigning, he campaigned a little different. They were mostly staying in the basement, not talking about a lot of stuff. Their website had a lot of crazy stuff. People weren't talking about it. And even if you said, no, Biden said this, the website says this, the media would be like, look the other way, look the other way, look the other way. So afterwards, when he became the president, and they're like, okay, let's get rid of these these pipelines or cut off, that they can't drill anymore. Let's do that. Unions are mad, and they start pushing a lot of gender ideology stuff, and there people like, hold up a second. Yeah, well, they can't campaign honestly. I did a video some time ago outlining. It's a really good video, I believe. I toot my own horn, but I believe. And I outlined why I believe that black people vote Democrat. And I had a couple different reasons, but a big one is that Democrats aren't honest about their policy positions. They, if Joe Biden was like campaigning on like, yeah, we're going to do all this stuff with gender ideology. We're going to, anyone can change their sex and their gender. And we're going to make boys have to compete with girls and go in the locker rooms. And if that was something that was in the forefront of the campaign, because not everybody follows politics like I follow politics or you follow politics. You're watching a podcast or like a video about politics. Not everyone follows it like you do. So you might be saying, well, of course Biden and them were going to do those things. But not everyone follows it like that. And the media will come around and they'll cover it. So not everyone is aware. Not everyone is aware. But a majority of black Democrats, 58%, say that you can't change your sex. That someone can be a man even if it's different from sex they were assigned at birth. That's, I think, an important number. Because so many Republicans think that it's just so darn futile to outreach to different minority groups. They think that they can just slide by going into red areas and just trying to, instill in the base to just like really, really go out there. But but if you're really soft on the social issues, there's like conservatives who will just be like, I'm not voting for you. I'd rather just let them take the state. I don't like that so much. I understand it. I know and love people who feel that way. I'd much rather have a Republican governor right now than the one I got. Because they've done some crazy stuff. So I think they're just, by not appealing and going into some places that maybe they would normally go to, I think they're missing out on a lot of opportunities of some votes that they could possibly pick up. And the Democrats, they have to rely on, their method is really an issue of morality. And a lot of the things that they espouse are really immoral, I think. But they do the surface level stuff by just attacking the character of Republicans and so on. Like, Trump is a racist. Everyone who associates with him is a racist. He's so bad. And he has to be the poster boy. And anyone who would defend him and stand by his side are all evil. You can go be running for treasurer, town trustee or something, knock on a door, and they see like if you're a Republican or something, be like, how do you feel about Trump? Are you one of them? And then they'll paint you whatever kind of brush. Like that's the strategy of like the Democrats. Can they come and actually defend their crazy policies? Like 58% of black Democrats are like, no, you can't just change your sex. You can't just become a man and a woman on a whim. That's how they feel. That's the data. So they can't, if they want to keep their bases and stuff, they can't go around, vigorously saying something that people are just like, that. What the, huh? You want a man coming in and pushing my baby girl off the sports team? I don't think so. And politics are personal. Some people are really like into like big issues and stuff, but politics can get so personal. We're going into midterms. So when you go door to door knocking, if you're a candidate watching, and you want to talk about something that might impact a parent, they have a child, especially a daughter, you can talk about these things. You can talk about these things. And not having, and being so afraid that you're going to offend somebody and dodging it, I think you're missing a lot of votes on the table. I honestly do. I honestly do. I honest to God do. 58%. They don't like when they turn on Blue's Clues that there's a gay pride parade on Blue's Clues with a drag queen leading it, talking about families and talking about, well, what's wrong with them learning about families? Because they represented every single other kind of family except a traditional family with a mom and a dad, like a nuclear family with mom and dad and kids, making kids biologically. They represented every single other kind of family except for that one. And they didn't represent any sort of straight people until they, like, because it was a number counting thing. And they didn't represent any sort of straight people until number 9. And they were just allies. They didn't even represent the family. So Nickelodeon's doing a lot of stuff. Disney's doing a lot of stuff. They got weird cartoons teaching about sea color. And that's how you fight racism, by just creating a hyper racialized world. But Republicans have to be brave enough. I don't have enough gumption to talk about these issues. People always are so confused why Trump won. There's a lot of different reasons, but the culture war that we were talking about, it was outrageous. Like in 2016, it was outrageous. And I mean, it's I guess it's crazier today, but that was really a height of it. Like you had on college campuses, conservative people trying to do all these lectures and these talks, and people just kept shutting them down. Like Ben Shapiro, and when Milo was a thing, they actually had like a riot on campus and stuff. Dave Rubin was pretty like middle of the road. They didn't want him to talk. You had that guy who worked at Google. Can't think of his name, but Google sent out a memo saying, hey, we want to know how we can get some more women in the workplace. And he did a detailed like memo of how he thought you could do that, and some research like, well, women like, applying how women think versus men think, and what kind of ways you can structure the workforce toward women. They thought it was so sexist and terrible. They let him go. It was crazy, the sort of, things we were hearing about. And people were like, no, we need someone to push back on these things. And Trump was willing to be a culture warrior in a lot of these different issues. And he was willing to make the case for, what have you got to lose? When he said that in, I forget where he was. When he said that in Michigan, I was right behind him. When Trump moved his head, I was there. When he said that in Michigan for the first time, I was there. And I turned to a friend of mine who was also working at the Michigan Republican Party at the time. And we were just like, okay. She was Filipino, and I was there with my dad and one of my other sisters and a church member. So we had our own little cluster of like minorities right there that were like, yeah. Now, of course, you got people like Juan Williams, who wasn't going to vote for him anyway. He was like, oh my gosh, that's so offensive. But some other people were like, you know what, he's got a point. Let me listen to what he's saying. And so, of course, Democrats and the media went on overdrive trying to make him seem like the worst person in the universe. And if you're associated with him or thinking about voting for him, then you're a terrible person, because they have to do personal attacks because their policies are bad and they don't appeal to people. Not normal people. Not normal people who just want to go about their day, take care of their families, go to work, maybe have a dream, achieve it or something. Their policies don't appeal to like normal people. You got to be like super activists activated to believe the hype of the stuff that they're pushing. And that's why, like, in this this survey that this Pew Research, a lot of the people, like, with this gender stuff, young Democrats, college educated, who are really into it. Because college campuses are so far left. And they're just in a petri dish of the ideology, I suppose. But it's possible for Republicans to fight back on you can believe that people should get the vaccine and have taken it yourself, but still stand up for people's liberty and their body autonomy. Say, I respect that you're skeptical and and just say the science if you believe it's there and it's safe, and like make that case. Make the case if that's what you believe, but have the guts to stand up for people and say, I'm going to make sure that no one forces you to do that, because I believe in your right to, I believe in informed consent. I believe in your body autonomy, and the government, just on principle, should not have that much authority. Period. And there's a lot of people who don't want to talk abortion because they feel that's too technical. Republicans need to be brave enough to make that case too. Nancy Pelosi the other day, she was talking about, she's like, the poor women need it. That's really creepy when you consider the eugenics movement behind organizations like Planned Parenthood, who wanted to take out minorities and the poor. And who does it affect the most? Arguing that we need it for women who are poor and black. She didn't say black, but that's a sentiment. People have said that women of color need abortion. And you can say, well, that's their choice to do that. But why are you breeding women, brainwashing them to think so little of their child that they would do that, make their situation seem so dire, lying to them as if life can just go back to normal and it's a reset? Why are you telling them all these things instead of saying, we want to help you make it? Why? Republicans have a severe messaging problem, and they have a courage problem. Because a lot of people hear conservative values and all they think about is, you don't want to pay for my health care. you don't want to help me this way, that way, that you're just selfish. That's how people view it. So you have to make the argument and make the case that, no, I just believe that if we give too much money to the government, it's going to take down everyone's level of care. For one, that you're going to empower them. And when the government is small, they work for us. And when it's large and they have a lot of power, we end up becoming sort of enslaved to them. They're now at this point where they're like, Biden believes that they can just fight poverty by just giving people money. And you have people like the New York Times, or not people, but organizations like the New York Times just saying things like, oh, they're destroying poverty, giving money to people. Well, that's just limited. What happens when that dries up? Oh, you don't want it to dry up, do you? Because you want people to be on the teat forever. That's not sustainable. We don't have that kind of money. We don't have that kind of money. And we already know that it's ruining the drive as far as like people getting unemployment and stuff. You could get $14 working at Taco Bell by my house. People still don't want to go to work. They know their policies are bad, but they are creating a system of people. They want people to be dependent on the government because they believe that's the easiest way to retain votes. So when I ran for state rep, and this was in a district where it's inevitably going to be Democrat. It needs time, a lot of time and work to even make that flip, but inevitably Democrat. But I actually ended up losing my primary by 6 votes. By 6 votes. But anyway, when I knock on a door in a place like Pontiac, where there's lots of Democrats, I would say, I'm running because I believe that we can make better decisions for our family than the government. And I want to empower you to do that. That should be the message of conservatism. I mean, besides that, we're fighting for your rights and all the other kind of, moral issues, which you can break down, and people will tend to agree with you. Like I said, minorities a lot of them are very religious, and a lot of them, if they're not into that woke, like black liberation stuff, are very conservative. Very conservative. And they might not realize it, but they have very traditional values. So you can start with that. You don't even have to tell them you're Republican at first. Establish a rapport. And don't have a haughty attitude like you're going into community like, we're going to help the blacks. We're going to solve no. Just be like, I want to help to create an opportunity with you. Not for you, but with you. I want to partner with you. I want to solve problems with you. I don't want to have to do things for you. I don't want to enable you. I don't want to destroy your sense of agency, but just say, I want to partner with you. I'm running because I want to partner with you. I want to empower you. So there's lots of opportunity. I'm going to close with this. When Black Panther came out, I think that was it 2019 maybe? No, it couldn't have been 2019. Maybe it was 2017 maybe. I know Trump had just passed. They just passed the tax cuts. And so my sister worked for the RNC, and I was a coalition's vice chair for the Michigan Republican Party. And I was like, I'm going to have an event. And so she got the RNC to sign off on it, and they paid for it. And so we rented out a local theater, and we were going to show Black Panther. That was the hook. But before Black Panther, we had a business panel. And so you come and ask questions, and you'd hear from someone who's, I think they don't call anymore, but he's over the Black Chamber of Commerce. And I was on the panel, and our urban outreach director was there too. And so we, had the panel, but we didn't advertise it like it was a Republican thing. So most of the people, it was probably half and half of Republicans, because friends and stuff came in and people were aware of it. But when we put the word out there, people were like, oh, Black Panther, bet. And so people are coming in like, this is a Republican event. And we're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. They weren't going to leave because they thought they could learn some interest. People got everywhere. Everyone's got dreams. They want to fulfill an American dream, and everyone wants free business advice. Everyone wants free business advice. Good free. People aren't always going to act on it, but everyone wants free business advice. So that was a gateway, but the hook was the Black Panther movie, and it was premiere night. So anyway, we go through the panel, and we mentioned the tax cuts, and there's people in the room who've already seen money back on their paychecks and stuff. And so we go through the issues and some of the ways that it's helped people, but then also talked about how to start your business and other stuff like that, what you need and so on. So after the presentation was over, someone raised a hand, and I knew this woman. I knew this woman was a Democrat when she came in, because she was like, this is a Republican thing. So I was just waiting to see if there'd be any pushback. And so she said, okay, this is a lot of good information, but we're not hearing all this. So what are you Republicans going to do to get this message out there to the people? So we can take care of our families. So she put it all back on us. She put it all back on us. And so I told her, I said, we just need to do better. That's just the short and truth answer. We just need to do better to get our message out there, to fight for the votes, to fight for everyone, and to make that case. And I think it's important that we do. So it was a good event, really good event. We captured some data. We watched the movie, which I think is a little overhyped, but I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it for sure. But we need to be more creative, and we need to be willing to outreach to people. So if you break down politics on a personal level, people will listen. So Republicans really need to do their job working for every vote, not just in safe areas, trying to pump out as much red as possible. But like in Michigan, like if you don't do decent in Detroit, you can't win it, right? But you just need to, a reasonable showing. Just not to get totally trounced, I guess. And you can win statewide easy. But you got to do some work there. You cannot just be hauled up at home or whatever. You can't just go on Fox News and Newsmax and think you're going to bang it out. You got to make your case. And I think Republicans, like, we got to talk about jobs. We want the economy to do better. Our economy should be rocket launching to the next sun in the distant galaxy, right? It should be so crazy good right now because we had an artificial depression, but because of dumb things the Democrats did, how much spending we're doing, people not, like, there's so many factors that are contributing to us not having a gangbusters economy right now. Just pure incompetence. We should be doing a lot better right now. So it is important for Republicans to keep talking about the economy, to keep promising to lower taxes and all this other kind of stuff. But these other issues are important too. And if you don't know how to make the case, well, you need a messaging team. That's what you need. Someone to help you with that. But I don't think you should be afraid to make those cases and talk about this stuff, especially some of the stuff going on with critical race theory. You just need to frame it well, and talk about the dangers of it, and a lot of this stuff that they're pushing as far as this gender ideology, especially since 58% of Black Democrats don't like it. You got votes on the table if you don't want to talk about protecting women's sports and stuff. You're just missing a lot. Absolutely missing a lot. Well, don't to be afraid to stray away from it, because even on the abortion issue, people get really, really touchy about it. Democrats are beyond the we want to protect women or whatever, safely going. They're way beyond that now. They literally want your taxpayer dollars to pay for it, not just here but around the world. So it's gone beyond, I think, what a lot of people are comfortable with. So let's talk about it. It doesn't have to be the spotlight on your campaign, but it's important. It's really important. And you gotta just be a little more courageous. Trump didn't do everything right, but there were some things he did. And standing up for being the culture warrior, and people acknowledge that he wasn't the greatest guy on the planet or whatever, or the person who's going to represent conservatism or family values or anything in a really great manner on a personal level. But people liked him because he is willing to fight for those things. There's a meme with Trump saying, they're really not after me, I'm just in the way. And I 100% believe that is accurate. 100% believe. Well, anyway, I gotta wrap it up, call it a close. Please visit blacktnews.com. Check out my content that I have on there. I have my goat hoodie in different colors now, so if you want one that's not white, it looks so good in white, but sometimes people spill things, so you can go ahead and check that stuff out. Got my Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt. Got other great stuff going on there. So please check out the stuff on the site. Also, please visit blacktnews.com/donate if you would like to support. You can do that via PayPal and Cash App. Thank you to everyone. Again, I was so excited about my numbers going up. I appreciate everyone who's a part of the journey. And I do want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack for being today's sponsor and allowing me to be here in their beautiful studio. Again, if I said something that triggered you, they don't care. I don't care. God bless you guys. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Let's talk about it at 7:30. We're going to be talking about some funny TikToks, some political TikToks, and having a good time. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, and please make sure that you're following me on Facebook at blacktnews.com, on YouTube at blacktnews.com, on Twitter at TrueBlackT, and at TikTok at BlackTNews. God bless you guys.